Hello, all, and good afternoon. Hi, so today I'm going to tell you the twisted tale of American jack-o'-lanterns. So, it's still Halloween, and so, I still like to stick to a theme. Um, Hope to see you all tomorrow. Sorry I missed today, but things happen. Dun, dun, dun. So, let's continue. So, each year, we kind of take pumpkins and we carve them and we set them out on the porch you know and you can do silly faces, fun faces, scary faces, whatever you want. And the lore goes back quite a ways, but I've never really looked up the tradition as to why. um but there's like the Ichabod Crane story, where it's the headless horseman goes along with his pumpkin and rides along with it and uses it for his head. But how did this tradition come to be? Like, why do we use it still? So there's a twisted transatlantic. That means it came from the East Coast because the Atlantic Sea is on the East Coast. Tale of the American jack-o'-lantern. And I do agree with this. There's no more classic Halloween image than a jack-o'-lantern perched in a window or on a porch, um, setting a merrily macabre mood. For decades, carving pumpkins has been a beloved fall tradition in America, celebrated with parties, festivals, and televised competitions. So they do. I mean, people love to carve a good pumpkin. But the history of jack-o'-lanterns, including how they came to start in Halloween decor and why they're carved in the first place, is a tale worth telling. Although the legendary Halloween horseman and his um, hurled pumpkin have been scaring Americans for generations, jack-o'-lanterns actually trace their origins back to the old world traditions in countries including Ireland, England, and Scotland. Along the way, pagan rituals, freaky folk tales, and natural phenomena have interwoven to create a fascinating history that's part fact, part fiction, and all frightening fun. Okay, so how did this happen? So, oh goodness gracious. Give me one moment, please. Sorry about all that. Uh, Apparently, you have to sign up for something to continue with this story. So, but it's the National Geographic Society, so I don't think they're lying. All right, so early Celtic rituals, as it came to the jack-o'-lantern. The concept of using a round fruit or vegetable to depict a human face goes back thousands of years in some northern European and Celtic countries. It may have even had pre-Christian origins, that evolved, so that would be AD, not BC. That evolved from the custom of head veneration or potentially even expressed war trophies taken from your foes. Scary. Says Nathan Mannion, a curator for uh, uh, Irish Immigration Museum in Dublin. It's quite macabre, but it may have symbolized the severed head of your enemies. Mm. So that's why people put the pumpkin out, maybe to make the face look like those people. But the idea took deeper hold during the Celtic festival of Samhain, which we discussed last time, so the first fall, which was originally celebrated on November 1st, and inspired many traditions of modern-day Halloween. On Samhain Eve, October 31st, spirits of the dead were thought to mingle with the living. To ward off restless souls, people donned costumes and carved frightening faces into root vegetables such as beets, potatoes, and turnips, usually plentiful after the recent harvest, which is why we do the pumpkin patch thing, or go to pumpkin patches to get pumpkins, because this is a perfect time of season for them to become ripe and wonderful. So that is how it kind of evolved. Is that those were the fruits of the season? I mean, if it was apples and things like that, it might be quite different. But also, metal lanterns were quite expensive, so people would hollow out root vegetables. So metal for the richer folk, I guess, used to be something as well. Over time, people started to carve faces and designs to allow light to shine through the holes without extinguishing the ember, which is better today because we actually have a lot more. Well, we have those little candles. I should have one here somewhere. But, to put inside a pumpkin so you don't have to actually have a candle burning all night because that's always not the safest thing with fire. But, however you like your gourd is your way of carving your gourd. Let's see. So in Ireland, in the county of Mayo, you could go firsthand to see turnips to take a look, as opposed to pumpkins. A plastered cast of carved turnip lantern common during the 1900s, called a ghost turnip, and complete with craggy and sinister eye slits, haunts the museum's permanent exhibitions. That sounds like fun. Human foibles and nature's tricks. The origins of jack-o'-lanterns aren't limited to produce. The term also referred to people, according to Merriam-Webster, in 17th century Britain. It was common to call a man whose name you didn't know Jack. A night watchman, for example, became known as a Jack of the Lantern, or Jack-o'-lantern. There's the 18th century Irish folktale of Stingy Jack, an unsavory fellow, often said to be a blacksmith who had a fondness for mischief and booze. Dozens of versions abound, but one recurring storyline is that Stingy Jack tricked the devil twice. When Jack died, he found himself barred from heaven and from hell. But the devil took some pity on Jack, giving him an ember of coal to light his lamp, to give him a piece of coal to light his turnip lantern as he wandered between both places for eternity, heaven and Hades. Again, inspiring the nickname of Jack-o'-lantern, or Jack-o'-lantern. Well, Jack did not do such a good job. It's also used as a cautionary tale, a morality tale, that Jack was a soul trapped between two worlds. And if you behaved like he did, you could end up like that too. Dun dun dun. So, what is it that Jack did? Yeah, too much mischief. Never ends well, apparently. The story also helped explain ignis fatuus, a natural phenomenon that occurs in marshlands and bogs, such as those in Ireland's countryside, producing flickering lights and gases from decomposing organic matter, and they combust. And so it sets off these beautiful, you know, autumnal lights. Also known as Fool's Fire, Fairy Lights, Will-o'-Wisp, and eventually Jack-o'-lantern, it often seemed like a floating flame that would move away from travelers. If you were to try to follow the light, you could go into a sinkhole or bog or drown. People thought it was Jack-o'-lantern, a lost soul, or a ghost. And again, this is in Ireland, and this is what Mr. Mannion says. Interesting history. As Ireland began the process of nationwide electrification in the 1930s, the tale of Stingy Jack started to fade. The minute the lights came on, a lot of the stories lost their potency and people's imagination weren't running as wild. Now, coming to America. But by then, the tradition of jack-o'-lanterns had already taken root in the New World, i.e. the U.S. Showing up in early American literature and media, writer Nathaniel Hawthorne, great writer, The Scarlet Letter, such and such. Referred once in his 1835 short story, The Great Carbuncle, and again in 1852 with Feather Top, about a scarecrow with a carved pumpkin head. According to Cindy Ott, author of The Pumpkin, The Curious History of an American Icon, the first image of Pumpkin Jack-o'-lantern is likely to appear in an 1867 issue of Harper's Weekly. Now, yeah, so this is where it comes in. So Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, The Headless Horseman, when he chucks an uncarved pumpkin at Ichabod Crane, who was never seen again. But most images of the terrifying villain betray him holding a fiery jack-o'-lantern, which helped the story become a perennial Halloween favorite. So if you get a chance, go watch that again. It's on Disney Plus. There's a nice plug. The legend is considered a Halloween story, probably because it was one of the first internationally well-known horror stories. The pumpkin became associated with that element of fear, and that's why jack-o'-lanterns come out, because it's with the galloping Hazian or soldier, the headless horseman, whatever you want to call him. And in the 19th and 20th century, the influx of Irish immigrants who brought their traditions and folktales also helped shape the story of jack-o'-lanterns in America. They discovered that pumpkins, not indigenous to Ireland but common here in the U.S., were much better suited to carving than turnips or potatoes. They're not as hard. They're much softer and more pliable. As more Americans began to celebrate Halloween, the jack-o'-lantern emerged as its most iconic image. In an Atlanta Constitution described the 1892 All-Halloween Party as the home of Atlanta Mayor William Hemphill in glowing terms. Never in the annals of Atlanta society has a more unique and brilliant entertainment been given, with decor showcasing all sorts of smiling lanterns made of pumpkins cleverly carved with faces. And the carved gourds, and that's what they are, they're little gourds, turnips, anything they're little gourds, have come to serve as much more than mere decoration. Despite their fearsome look, jack-o'-lanterns now symbolize a welcoming sense of community. And it's true. Like, you go out and you see what kind of pumpkin people have carved on their porch. Some kids, some people, some families are much more likely to go and actually say, hello. But there are tons and tons. It's one of those things that we can actually do. Go see pumpkins or carve our own that really make Halloween a very unique tradition. I remember as a kid, I always wanted to carve pumpkins pretty well, and I didn't always do the greatest job. But it was one of my favorite things, just to go and get all the innards out and, set that down on a piece of paper. And then, even the trickiest thing would be to carve out like a triangle eye or an odd-shaped nose. And then, over the years, you kind of expand sometimes just to kind of see how things can go that way. But, I haven't done mine yet. My yard is, I will send a photo out to y'all to show you what my yard looks like. But, it's one of those things that is, for Halloween, it's the one time of year that you can really go out and be something that, nobody ever really expected. And the jack-o'-lantern, the pumpkins, sitting, and to be able to have everything with that. And also, I recommend that you eat the seeds, the pumpkin seeds. You can bake them and things like that. Look up a recipe. but it's all fun. So, again, for this Halloween, enjoy, and I will see you all later on.